It's funny. People always be like, don't forget about the little people. It's like, why do they refer themselves as little anyway, you know? Why don't you just get big with me? Feel me? They can see it in my eyes.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Johnson's Idol Podcast, a partner of MoshPitNation.com. I am your host, John. This week's guest is Mike Dean of the mighty Corrosion of Conformity. COC, motherfuckers. Before I get to talking a little bit about my conversation with Mike Dean, let me rewind a little bit. This conversation actually happened as a result of the band was supposed to play at a venue here in town called 20 Monroe Live here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We were supposed to get Corrosion of Conformity opening on the Black Label Society tour that was going around and still is currently. And about 2 days, I want to say, before the show, Zach ended up having to cancel a couple of dates for an illness. I believe, actually, from listening to the Josta podcast today with Zach Wild, it was due to like a hernia complications or hernia surgery or something to that effect. So it was one of those things where I think that's what the result of why they had to cancel the shows was. Interestingly enough, though, the band ended up playing at another venue here as a headlining date here in Grand Rapids at the intersection in the front room, a 400-ish cap room. It was Corrosion of Conformity and two local bands. The site that I contribute this podcast through, MoshPitNation.com, obviously, we do a lot of stuff promoting shows locally, and once we found out that the show was happening here still with Corrosion, we partnered with the venue to spread the word. A couple local bands got put on. We gave away a bunch of tickets to help, bring in a good draw for Corrosion. And it was a lot of fun and really, exciting time, even though it sucked that, Black Label wasn't coming through. We basically we're still getting something, and we're getting a headlining Corrosion show. And honestly, the last time that the band had been through was on the support slot for Guar a couple of years ago when they were just still a three-piece, when they didn't have Pepper in the band. So this is the first time that Grand Rapids has gotten to see Pepper in Corrosion of Conformity since he left many, many, many years ago. So it was very exciting. It was a lot of stress of trying to get people aware of a show and get a good turnout to help the venue. And in all of that chaos, I reached out to the band's publicist to try and set up an interview with somebody real quickly just to help raise awareness with a lot of the promotional stuff we were doing over at Mosh Pit Nation on the Facebook page or even on the website, and just kind of get people to know that, hey, COC is playing a headlining set. Granted, it's on a Thursday, but still, come hang out, get some metal in your life, and see a kick-ass band just rip it. And I was supposed to talk to their drummer, I think, was the original goal. Due to some complications in communicating and all that kind of stuff, the interview didn't happen. And I kind of figured that was it, that's where the interview was going to die right there, and that I wasn't going to get an opportunity to talk to anyone from the band. But I reached back out to the publicist, and I basically said, hey, I'm sorry this, didn't work out. Thank you for the opportunity. And, if down the road, maybe you could get someone to do a small conversation about the new record that just came out and the tour that they're obviously on still with, Black Label Society, that would be really cool. But if not, totally understand, because, this is still a rather small podcast in the grand scheme of things. And not everybody is going to let me have, some of these bigger guests. So it was a lot of fun trying to, get it to happen. There was a hot minute where it didn't look like it was going to happen because, we were, day of the show. I hadn't heard anything back from the publicist, and I was like, this isn't going to happen. This sucks. But it is what it is. And then, there was more communication with the publicist a couple hours before the show was actually going to happen. And then it fell through again. And then I thought maybe something could happen after the show, but that didn't happen. So like I said, I ended up emailing the publicist and basically just thanking them for the opportunity to try to do something. And if there was ever a chance that we could get somebody to talk about, again, the new record, No Cross, No Crown, and just kind of talk about it, we would love the opportunity and thank them. And surprisingly, I think about a week went by, and then I got a, yeah, no problem. Yeah, let's set that up, blah, blah, blah. And here we were, back to figuring out a date and a time that worked, and who I was gonna get, because it kind of changed from a couple different people. And finally, I think like the day before, I get the confirmation like, hey, you're gonna talk to Mike Dean. You're gonna talk to him at this time. You get like 10 minutes with him, 10 to 12 minutes. So I was kind of bummed. Because I mean, it's one of those, like, I feel like sometimes when you get some of these interviews, and a publicist tells you you only have a couple, basically 10 minutes with somebody, and it's like you can't really get into a whole lot in 10 minutes. So I've been trying to take the approach of like, I'll just take what I can get, and try to make the best of it. So I end up getting home. I end up, preparing for the interview, and I'm kind of looking and whittling down my questions and trying to come up with like the best 10 minutes that I can come up with that's, really solid and allows us to talk about as much as we can. But then the unexpected actually ended up happening as I ended up talking with Mike Dean. I gave him a call, and I caught him right after sound check, and at a point where he didn't really have a whole lot to do with the rest of his day before the show, and he actually gave me more time. And all in all, I think I ended up getting about 25 minutes with Mike, and it couldn't have been nicer. He couldn't have been nicer. The interview went really well. We kind of bullshitted about some other things. We got into a couple little side tangents. I was able to throw in a couple more questions that I wanted to ask him. And I think it just really kind of goes to show that sometimes, like, you got to prepare the best you can for the allotted time you have. And maybe you might be pleasantly surprised and the person ends up giving you more time than you were expecting to get with them. And that was what happened here. So I was really happy that I was able to get, a decent amount of time with Mike. He answered a lot of my questions, and there's some things that he kind of said in this chat that I thought were really interesting, in light of the news that Slayer were calling it a day, that Leonard and Skynyrd was calling it a day, and apparently Ozzy Osbourne was doing a final tour, and then later announced that he wasn't not going to be touring, and that this wasn't the final tour. So I still really don't know what's going on with that, but all in all, it was just a really good experience chatting with Mike. Couldn't have been nicer, and the show was really awesome that they played here. So if you get an opportunity to go see the COC opening for Black Label Society, or you get an opportunity to see the band on a headline spot, go see them. With a lot of these legacy acts, you don't know how long they're going to be around, and they're still just bringing it. And their newest album, No Cross, No Crown, honestly, in my opinion, it ranks right up there with some of the best material they put out. There seems to be a new sense of like reinvigoration in the band, and the fact that they don't mind, playing in smaller clubs and getting sweaty and dirty with their fans, as well as playing some of the bigger rooms, and just kind of, being able to go from any and all vibes. I think just really speaks to the blue collar nature that the band kind of has always had, and just kind of the willingness to want to jam and play. So it was really awesome getting to talk to Mike. I'll kind of touch briefly on my trip to LA. We had the first experiences of issues with flying that I've ever dealt with. There was a missed flight, not due to our fault. We had a 3-hour layover after the missed flight. We got a rescheduled flight to Kansas City that we almost missed because the airport sucks. And as soon as you walk out your gate, you basically walk out of the concourse. So we had to go back through security, and only had about maybe 10 minutes to spare. So that sucked. And then the time difference really whooped our ass after basically sitting around and having flight issues all day. So ended up going to the 18 Vision show. That was fucking rad. Got to talk to James from 18 Visions, got about 20 minutes with him. And at first I was a little down about that because I thought I was going to get more time with him. But the flip side of that is having just done this conversation with Mike and seeing how well I was able to do with that and how much we were able to unpack in 20 minutes. I went into it really stoked to just have the time because, James could have fucking blown me off and, realistically should have, because I didn't go through a publicist. I just hit him up and all that kind of stuff. So, but that episode will be out probably in the next week or so. And, LA was interesting. I definitely don't think I would go back, but it was cool to knock off some of the classic venues. Like we went to the Viper Room, show was at the Roxy. I passed the Whiskey on my way to the Roxy. Ran into Doc Hoyle at the 18 Vision show. We were supposed to do a podcast while I was out there with him, but he got busy doing some stuff. But we ended up chatting for a little while before 18 Visions went on. Heard a little bit of news about the Bad Wolves record as he was talking to somebody else. And I mean, Doc and I are going to get a chat in here pretty soon. Like I said previously, we're gonna do it talking about sports and particularly the NBA. And the All Star game is actually happening now-ish. I think actually this weekend. So I actually need to get a hold of Doc and see if I can't get something scheduled because that should have happened. So yeah, I had a good time. Got a tattoo while I was out there, the most random tattoo. I just basically got the like LA Dodgers LA thing, but instead of the L being a traditional L, it's actually a palm tree. So it was kind of a gimmicky jammer that I wanted to get, and still doing that. So, but we made it back, and yeah, it was an interesting vacation. It was nice to get out of this cold ass weather that we're experiencing here in Michigan. When we left, it was 13 degrees. I think when we touched down in LA, it was like 63 or so. So, I mean, quite a bit of a difference. Everyone looked at me like I was weird because it would be like mid 50s, maybe 60, and I'm wearing shorts and like a basketball jersey because I was sweating when I had jeans on earlier in the day, and people are wearing like fucking hoodies and jeans and shit, and it's like, how are you cold in this weather? But I guess it's all about what you're used to. So LA was interesting. I'll probably tell you a little bit more about it as time goes on, but yeah, 18 Vision Show. It was a good time. It was really great seeing that band doing it really well. And Martyr AD was really fucking sweet. We only caught about half of their set. Like when we walked in, they were in the middle of a beatdown riff, and just seeing the handful of people that were in the pit just going ape shit was awesome. It felt like hardcore shows you would go to in the early 2000s. So, yeah. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Mike Dean of Corrosion of Conformity.
Sure.
So you're currently on the road with Black Label Society. Something interesting that happened to you guys here when you were here in the Michigan area is Zach had an illness and ended up having to cancel our date of the show. Thankfully, though, you guys being the awesome band that you are, decided to kind of call an audible and play a headline show very last minute here at the intersection in Grand Rapids. So something I kind of wanted to know, since you guys go into with this tour planning on maybe a 45-minute set, how hard is it to kind of audible so quickly and play a full headline set for people like us on those few shows that you got to do?
It's pretty easy to do it. It might be challenging to do it competently, but fortunately we had to regroup the previous 2 days in Montreal and Toronto, so we had to we had to dust off a few of those songs. And to be honest, we have a couple songs that we swap out.
Okay.
In our set. We don't do necessarily the same set every night, so we got a couple alternates we're immediately conversing on. So it wasn't too tough. It was fun. There's also a lot of places where we like to stretch out, on we can stretch out a long time on Clean My Wounds or 13 Angels.
Right.
And maybe on the support set for Black Label Society, where we're just kind of playing for a shorter time, we might rein that in. So yeah, we can get a little more self-indulgent. It's
yeah,
called
for sure.
fun too.
What's kind of been interesting too, speaking to the shows here in Michigan, I had caught you guys when you were performing as a three-piece on that Gore tour a handful of years ago, and it kind of is interesting to know that you guys have gone out and had a couple of different iterations of the band touring even, and I kind of had wondered, is there maybe one that you like? Is it kind of nice to be able to slip into a three-piece and play some of the stuff off of those albums that you guys put out? And then, be able to kind of add Pepper back into the fold and kind of play as a four-piece? I can't really think of a lot of bands that have that capability to kind of go back and forth as a three-piece to a four-piece and, have a lot of different material that fans will want to hear from both eras of the band.
Yeah, I think we'd have to do a good bit of rehearsing to get back in three-piece mode, because we just kind of immersed ourselves in learning some of the old songs, and now having learned how to play some of the studio creations that we just threw together on the fly for the new record, and we're like still trying to get some of those to translate, to a live situation. And so to go back to some of the 3-piece material, which some of it's a little complicated just for complicated sake, really. I mean, since it's a little composed. There's some crazy parts and stuff, and so it would take a little bit of studying up to get back there. But the 4-piece material is, from my point of view, from playing bass, I mean, it's more, the structures are more straightforward, and it's more about variation within those structures, whereas the 3-piece is kind of like, there's this part, and then here's this crazy variation on it,
right?
And there's that part or whatever, and then we just jam out, and it's just, but yeah, I mean, we just, this band's been around a long time, so
speaking of
we've gone through different stages.
Let's just say, speaking of the band kind of being around for a long time, what's been interesting for me, you guys have been collectively playing, I think, as the entity of Corrosion of Conformity a little bit longer than I have been alive. I'm 33, and I think you guys have been around maybe a year or two before even I was around.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like Reed Mullins like 15 at that point, and yeah, we started our drummer could not even legally operate a motor vehicle.
Is it kind of wild though when you look out to the crowds and see like a multi-generational crowd like that? You're now one of those bands that not only transcends a lot of different genres, but is you're seeing dads take their children with them, or parents taking their children that grew up listening to you guys back then.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, yeah, it's like the Grateful Dead or something. Yeah, to do the math on the linear time elapsed is it's a little more than I can ruminate on for very long.
Speaking of the new songs and the new album, No Cross, No Crown just came out very recently via Nuclear Blast Entertainment. How have the new songs been kind of going over? I know you guys did quite the promotional rollout for it with Luddite and a few other songs, but how have the new songs been going over live?
I think they've been going over pretty well. It's pretty much just the Luddite we've been playing on this tour. We have a wolf named Crow, mostly worked up. That wouldn't be too hard to bust out, and possibly a song called Forgive Me is perhaps something we could do, but we just come out of the gate guns a-blazing with a brand new song, and it's aggressive, and it's got a little hook, and people syncopated and crazy, and people kind of dig it. So yeah, I think it's been going over well. It's been translated well. I think that's one we chose because it's just really it's within the singer's natural range, and it's just something that's firmly within our capability to execute. And some of the other stuff is, more stretching out a little bit. And we'll see how that develops. But yeah, we need to do a lot more rehearsing on some of these other pieces, because really the first time we played them correctly, there was tape rolling, and we got it right there. So gotta see how it translates to live setting.
Speaking to the new album though, I mean, you guys, we've already mentioned a couple of times that, the lineage and legacy of the band. Were you guys surprised at how well this record has done? With it being so long into a career, like a lot of times they tend to find bands that are at your stage, kind of, they might have new material, but they don't push it as much as like the back catalog. So are you kind of surprised at how well this album's done?
Yeah, I'm happy, because I think I think that seems to be the tendency with acts that have been artists that have been around for a long time, is even if they come up with something that's objectively like, oh, they're making like an artistic statement, They're doing things that are stylistically cool. This is as awesome as anything they've ever done. It's not always recognized. You know, the fans want to hear something familiar from like the, you know, supposedly golden era of whatever, you know. Like the last 2 Rush records that were done by, you know, recorded by Nick Raskulinecz, those were like phenomenal. But, you know, it's not like people are clamoring to hear that shit. They want to hear Tom Sawyer or something else.
It's kind of always, it's weird. You know, I was thinking back to when I saw you on that Guar tour. I heard some people in this I was going to say stands, but there is no stands in the crowd talking about how,
the mob.
Yeah, talking about kind of how bummed they were that, you know, it was a tour without Pepper and they really wanted to hear Clean My Wounds and stuff like that. And like, it kind of got me thinking, like, is it sort of a blessing and a curse to have a song that's so widely known in your catalog, like as the big single, but that maybe it's kind of like the only reason people are there to see you? Like, is that kind of rough, or do you look at it as a challenge? Like, okay, I know you like this song, maybe we'll play it at the very end of the set, but here's all these other awesome fucking songs we've been doing for 20 plus years. Like, get into this.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, look, I think that like you could pin 3 COC into 3 or 4 definitive periods of time. You know, you had like the original kind of hardcore / crossover, for lack of a better term, phase, and then you had the Mark II lineup, you know, with Phil Swisher on bass and Carl Egel singing like the blind thing, and then you had the you know, Pepper Keenan steps up and sings, and Mike Dean comes back and plays bass, and then you had the New Jack 3-piece. And I think there's among the people that are in the band, there's proponents of all those eras. There's people that, you know, there's a whole lot of people like the whole Deliverance and Wise Blood, In the Arms of God, you know, all those records. There's people that really, you know, are, you know, Pepper, that's the guy, you know?
Right.
That's the guy. Anything else is crap. They feel like that. And then there's people that are like, no, you know, Blind, you know, Carl Egel, that's the guy. Those are the songs. Play Dance of the Dead. And then there's like, you know, your orthodox, you know, punk people that are like, no, Animosity is like the greatest record and everything else is like a commercial sellout. You know. And then there's some people, you know, they're like, oh yeah, the New Jack, you know, self-titled there, that's, you know, that's the shit. So, and if you look at social media or whatever, there's kind of like people being not so subtle or or open-minded about, you know, anything other than what they enjoy. So I mean, you know, that's just the reality, and that's all. Any expression of that stuff is really just kind of background noise to us at this point, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of just trying to do the best we can, and you know, whatever.
It's kind of funny you bring up the social media thing and looking at that. Like, I never really would have, you know, with you guys having been around for so long before.
Read the comments.
Well, I was going to say, never read the comments, but it's like, you know, now you're in a digital age where it's like, you know, you're getting, you know, putting out a record before it comes out, or, you know, the fact that you're teasing maybe that you're writing a new record with Pepper. And it's like, do you get trapped in the same, or do you fall into the same trappings I see like younger people in bands do? Like, where it's like you might read the comments and like, oh, shit.
Oh, I read the comments and I read the comments and I eviscerate them and reply. You know? All right. I gently and cheerfully ridicule everyone.
So speaking of kind of the internet and so forth, the internet's been abuzz the last week or two with a lot of bands kind of calling it a day. Like, I actually was listening to a different podcast today and heard that apparently Skynyrd is actually packing it up as far as at least being a touring band. Ozzy just announced his farewell tour. Slayer's packing it up.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are so far into your career and, you know, putting out still quality fucking music. I mean, the new record's probably up there for me as one of my favorites out of your catalog, really.
Well, okay, so first off, the last Leonard Skynyrd record, that's a Leonard Skynyrd record for real, would be Street Survivors, and like, what is that, 1977?
Yeah,
1976. I mean, anything after that, yeah, anything after that is just kind of an attempt to
keep the name going.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been pretty disappointing. I watched a lot of shows, you know, as a local rigger, hands, and sometimes they make me run spotlights. I've seen a lot of quote unquote Leonard Skynyrd shows, so yeah, that's not surprising. I mean, Gary Rossington is still in that band, right? He's still an amazing guitar player, and they got like the dude from Jacko or something, I don't know, but they haven't had like the proper singer since like 40 years, so. But Slayer were very capable, Of course, we miss Jeff Hanneman, but as they said, they declared victory and they're going home. Is what they said. And I think that's sincere, and I think that's to be admired. If you're not feeling it, not feeling creative, or you're not feeling it, that's understandable. That's a very aggressive stance to maintain into your 50s. But I just had this question in another interview, and I'll go out on a limb here and say that I predict in 6 months they're going to be bored as hell and they're going to have to fire back. And in 18 months, Slayer will be on the road again. You got my word on it.
Do you think it'll be Slayer? Or do you think it'll be Kerry King? Because I mean, it seems like Kerry's the one that really is pushing it at this point. And then at that point, does it become another Leonard Skynyrd, where it's like, oh, it's Slayer, sort of in name only?
I don't think he would do it with that. I don't think that Kerry would have Slayer, Tom Araya, and vice versa. I mean, I don't. You could make an argument for that, or you could do it, but I don't think they would. And I think, I think they'll be bored, and they'll be bored within a year, and you'll hear a reunion tour. But I do love the press release that they declared victory, and they're going home after this tour.
And then I just saw that actually Ozzy's saying that the farewell tour isn't the end of what he's doing with touring. And I was like, then what's a farewell tour? Are you pulling a Kiss where you're calling it a farewell tour and then staying around for another 15 years?
For like 25 years.
Yeah, I saw the original.
The first tour was 25 years ago, yeah.
I saw one of those I think it was the reunion tour right when they first came back. And I was just kind of like, yeah, well, that's Kiss. And they've been doing it since.
I'm waiting for them to franchise the whole thing like Blue Man Group.
They've talked about.
Will there be different touring companies? You don't need any of those guys at this point.
I think it would be like a Blue Man Group. I mean, obviously people get all up in arms about the makeup, and I mean they've already proven that they don't really give a shit who's in the original makeup at this point. So I mean, it's just a matter now of replacing them. And I think it's been made. A lot of conversation has been made about what is it, Foreigner, that's going out, and they don't even have an original member, and they've been doing the touring circuit for probably 15, 20 years with basically no original members at all, and people still go support it.
Huh, yeah. Well, maybe if you lose some of the original members, there's room for improvement.
Do you guys see yourselves potentially calling it a day? Like, I mean, you're so far into your career. I mean, I'm not saying that you need to or anything like that. Like I said, you're.
Oh, why don't you think about quitting?
No, it's not even that. Like I said, your new record is probably one of the better. Like to me, it's right up there with some of the more classic records, and it's only not even a month old at this point. And having just seen you guys a couple of weeks ago, obviously you still can bring it. So I'm not saying from a standpoint of like it's time to pack it up. It's like no, you still got plenty of life left in the band. But is there the still? Do you guys see like maybe in like 5 years, like maybe it's like kind of touring's getting a little harder. There's things just the business side of things maybe making it a little harder to stay out there.
I can't really see that. I can't see that yet. I mean, to me, it's like as long as there's like the inspiration and the logistical capability to make a new record, and to create something, and then wrestle a little bit with how to present it live, then it's real interesting for me. If it's all just about playing the old songs and nothing else, if it comes to that, then touring can be a little repetitive. You're just kind of in a mechanical sort of groove there.
Yeah.
But if there's a chance to stretch out during the performance, jam a little bit, kind of reinvent things as you go, be a little creative, and there's a chance to come up with a new album, on a timely basis and all that, then that's what kind of injects the life into it. And right now, that's made it real real vibrant, for me. So I'm just like, yeah, as long as we can do that, I can't see like any kind of definite, end to it. And, we're not like big long-term planners. We're just kind of looking down the road a little bit at whatever. So yeah, I'm not really looking to declare victory until home yet.
Awesome. And then lastly, 2018, I mean, you just put out a new record. You're on tour right now with Black Label through, I believe, even the end of this month. I think it ends out in Portland, I believe, or out on the West Coast there.
Yeah. But after that, maybe Los Angeles or Sacramento, one of those two. Yeah.
And then I would assume an overseas cycle, and then maybe like another headline run here in the States would be on.
Yeah, all that stuff. We're in the summertime. We may do some more Black Label dates, just a few, and we got to go to Europe and do the wonderful festivals. And we're crying about being able to go to Australia soon, and then do a little headlining thing at the U.S. And yeah, so we're doing the whole program, all that stuff.
I know for me, I don't know if it'll happen again since the tour happened not that long ago, but I would love to see you guys take out the Mothership Boys again and get the brothers and Judge out this way and see some of those jams where Kelly gets up there and jams with you guys too.
Yeah, he's pretty inspired guitarist, man. That's a particularly special band. They got for such young people, they got like a good historical grasp of like certain almost lost rock tradition, and so it's good to see people that can carry that aesthetic forward like in a valid way, like sort of making it fresh again. It's throwback shit, but it doesn't seem like throwback shit. They put some life in it. So yeah, I like that band a lot.
Yeah, I was really bummed that it didn't really get over here when you guys were touring with them. And then I was really pulling for them to get that Metallica spot, but that didn't pan out either on some, I think, kind of some bullshit.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Anyway.
But I'm going to go ahead and let you get back to your day and get back to hitting the road with BLS and rocking everybody out on this tour. And again, No Cross, No Crown, already out via Nuclear Blast Entertainment. Mike, thanks for taking the time to talk to me tonight. I always like to end these chats with a song, so what would you like me to play? Doesn't necessarily have to be one of your songs, could be anything.
Well, I think maybe you should spin ELM off of No Cross, No Crown.
All right. Well, thank you again for your time, and hopefully we'll see you back around the Michigan parts here pretty soon.
Right on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, bye-bye. So that was my conversation with Mike Dean of Corrosion of Conformity. Had a lot of fun, like I said in the intro, chatting with Mike Dean. It was really cool to hear his take on, a lot of the bands that are kind of calling it a day, and the fact that COC is not going to do that for the foreseeable future. Being into a lot of older bands and so forth, it always gets kind of hard to go and see some of your bands that you love and hear some of this music and know that it's just not being done to the fullest potential that it should and could be. A great example of that for me is I love Motley Crue. They are probably one of my favorite bands. I know their discography is kind of lacking in different eras and points, but having gone to see them pretty much since they came back with Vince Neil, they were put on a really great show. And then it's like, one of the last times I actually saw them, the opening date of the farewell tour. And I'm sure if you are a fan of that band at all, potentially the horribleness of that show went worldwide. And it was just so bad. And it really made me kind of go like, I wish I wouldn't have come to this show because this is now the last memory I have of this band. And I think that's kind of common. Like, unfortunately, I think a lot of bands, hold on to the fact that they think they still got it, and you can move around the tuning and so forth, and make it seem like some of these bands are still able to hit some of these notes, and but a lot of times these songs aren't in the same key anymore because the singers just can't play that way or just can't sing in that key anymore in that register. And COC, by all accounts, having just seen them and having listened to this new record and from straight up from Mike's mouth, the band is going to keep going. So it's really great to see that. It was an interesting take on the whole Slayer thing, that he doesn't think that they are really gonna call it a day. But I mean, can you blame him? I mean, enough bands have said that they're calling it a day under oath. Put out a whole documentary about how they were calling it a day. They couldn't do it anymore for various reasons, and then a short amount of time later, they come back. Now it seems like they're going to be doing a new album and more touring. And, you have other bands like Thrice, call it a day and then come back. So in the day and age of bands leaving and then coming back a handful of years later, I think I'm going to tend to agree more with Mike on this one and say that maybe Slayer is just going to go on an extended hiatus for a little while. And then once all the batteries are recharged, see where everything lies. I don't see Kerry King keeping the beast down for too long, but who knows? Maybe they'll do a Motley Crue kind of thing and sign a binding contract that doesn't allow them to play anymore. But back to the mighty COC. They're on the road right now with Black Label Society and will be for the next couple of weeks. They have a new record out, No Cross, No Crown, that just came out recently via Nuclear Blast Entertainment. That record fucking rips, and it's already in my top 10 early on this year for 2018. Let's see if it stays in there at the end of the year. Lots of good records to come out still, like the new Twitching Tongues. They dropped a new song. Really love that band. Can't wait for that, but keeping up with COC, you can do such over on Facebook at Corrosion of Conformity, all one word. Instagram and Twitter are at COCABAL, and it didn't look like Mike Dean had any social media for himself. I couldn't find anything anyway. Probably better off. As you heard him say, he sometimes reads comments on the band's stuff, and it can get kind of shitty as it is, so I think it's kind of commendable to not have social media, not fall into the trappings and pitfalls of having social media and seeing some of the crazy things that people say on a daily basis. If you would like to follow our partner, Mosh Pit Nation, you can do such at moshpitnation.com. You can find lots of reviews, shows going on around here in Michigan and the Midwest area. You can also find this podcast on there. Lots of great content for all of you for all your Midwest metal needs. You can also find them on Facebook at Mosh Pit Nation West, capital MI. You can find them on Instagram and Twitter at Mosh Pit Nation, and you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube on John's Untitled. And you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube And you can follow me at John's Untitled Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I've been getting a lot of great comments on the YouTube channel as of late. The Bad Rabbits episode's been doing pretty good. The Justin Holman episode, surprisingly enough, a lot of people, when they find that, are really loving the fact that they kind of have some closure as to what happened to Revis. Just actually got a message today from a lady who was a fan of the band, kind of had a lot of the same questions, didn't know where the band went, what happened. So it's really cool to be able to provide some information, so when people are seeking it out and they want answers to some of the questions they've had for a decade or more, that my podcast is able to provide that for people. And then just in general, I enjoy talking to people as a whole and learning about them. Interestingly enough, the photo I use for the cover for all of this stuff, someone actually told me that when they lived here in Grand Rapids, that they lived in the building over my left shoulder. So never know what people are going to tell you, but love the comments. Keep them coming on a lot of the different formats. Again, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at John's Untitled Podcast. Tweet me at John's Untitled Pod, and you can email me at johnsuntitledpod@gmail.com. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if you hate something. Like I said, I try to keep everything as different as I can across the various socials. Try to have different interactions. I know there's some carryover between different people. Interestingly enough, while I was out in LA, I got a text from Ian from Zayas. He was in Memphis and sent me a photo of someone that knew me. And I didn't recognize the person at first because I was just more caught up on the fact that I don't know anyone in Memphis. And I realized that it was an old friend of mine, Clint Devlin. When you've actually heard me tell the stories about how I went to Ozfest one year and a friend of mine was tour managing one of the bands, that's who I'm talking about. Clint was actually tour managing Onkla. The guitar player from Onkla, Ramon, was the guitar player for Puya, if you remember that band. And it was an interesting time to go hang out at Ozfest, and it was one of the last Ozfests in the incarnation of the tour as it was a full-on traveling tour. So Clint was the person that I knew that was on that tour that hooked it up for the 2 times I went that year. And maybe I should get him on and kind of talk about some stuff, because that dude's lived a pretty interesting, varied life. Last I knew, he was in Colorado, but apparently he's got a new band. They played a show with Zayas, and when he was talking with Ian, mentioned that he knew me, or somehow I got mentioned. I don't remember specifically, but long and short of it, I got a text saying that someone that they were talking to at this show knew me, and just kind of goes to show how small this fucking world really is, and how far-reaching podcasts can be sometimes, even as small as this thing. So if you'd like to follow me and kind of keep up with all of that kind of going on, you can. Like I said, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email, however you would like to get a hold of me, go ahead. We are going to end this episode as we always do with a song. And as you heard Mike Dean say at the end there, he wanted me to play out this episode to ELM off of Corrosion of Conformity's new album, No Cross, No Crown, out now via Nuclear Blast Entertainment. Album is really fucking good. I was really stoked on all the songs when the Luddite and a few other songs had come out to tease the new album before it actually had come out. It was a little bit redundant, but when I got the record and started jamming it, this was one actually that I kind of, upon my first listen, I kind of repeated this one song. So it was kind of awesome that Mike picked a song that was easily one of my favorites off of the record, which also I think speaks volumes to how good this record is. No Cross, No Crown, again, with it being, a song that's so deep into the album. I think it's like track 12 or something like that. It's definitely a deep cut. But I think that's kind of the great thing about, a lot of bands like that have been around for as long as Corrosion, is that, they have bangers like so far late into the album and so forth, and it's definitely an album band, not just like let's front load the CD or the album with all the singles right in the very beginning, and then by like track 6 or 7 here's kind of the shit that we did just to kind of fill out the album. So it's definitely really great to see Corrosion of Conformity back with Pepper, to have such a strong album come out the gate, to do so well. Them getting on the Black Label Society tour kind of reintroduces them to a lot of people who may have forgotten how much they love this band and their amazing back catalog. So they are currently still on tour with Black Label Society. So if you love loud guitars and just pummeling hard rock music, I would definitely say that is the tour for you. Again, the new album, No Cross, No Crown, is out now. You can get it on iTunes and Spotify and all those places. The vinyl is pretty sweet. It's got I actually was going to pick it up today as I was doing some album shopping, and if it wasn't for the fact that it had like a bent corner on the album itself, the jacket, I would have picked it up. But it's a monster fucking record, literally. I think it's on double wax, and I think it even has an etched B-side as well, or I'm sorry, a D-side. So go support this band. Thanks again to Mike Dean. Thanks again to Liz over at Ear Splitter PR. And also, again, thanks to Moshpit Nation for hosting the podcast, and thanks to the PRP for actually giving the Shield de V episode of the Bad Rabbits episode I did last week some love earlier this week. So, without further ado, this is ELM by Corrosion of Conformity off their new album, No Cross, No Crown. Talk to you next week.